Today's markup could be the most partisan one we've had this Congress in what's been an uncharacteristically partisan 9 months for this committee. This divisive markup comes against the backdrop of a very hasty evacuation of civilian and military personnel in Afghanistan, which the administration completely botched. We left behind billions of dollars in military assets to the Taliban, who made very quick use of it against their adversaries. But that is nothing compared to the risk that this administration took with our military and civilian personnel during the evacuation, when lives were lost and many others were left behind. Congress should prioritize the situation in Afghanistan until we bring all Americans left behind, not to mention the need to support the recovery from Hurricane Ida and other disasters across the country, including the wildfires that were mentioned. These are only some of the issues that are more pressing and time-sensitive than the majority's socialist tax and spending plan. Now, having said that, we're clearly going to proceed with today's markup on the Speaker's wish list, which is so reckless and expensive, Republicans will have no choice but to oppose it. This is similar to the infrastructure debate here in the House when Republicans warned against a package that was too expansive and too expensive. However, those warnings were ignored and Republicans were shut out. Yet the Senate and White House, they heeded those warnings and were able to strike a deal by lowering the total cost of the package and focusing on traditional infrastructure, roads, bridges, water, and broadband. So there's no surprise that the House has been sidelined through this whole process. Now the majority is going to try to make up for their lack of input on infrastructure through this $3.5 trillion spending bill. Meanwhile, the Speaker has proudly held the Senate's infrastructure bill hostage. It's completely entangled with the reconciliation package, part of which we are marking up today. Even Democrats asked for an earlier vote on the Senate infrastructure bill to clearly separate it from the multi-trillion-dollar package. But they didn't get it because infrastructure now just a Trojan horse. The Speaker cares more about pleasing her ultra-progressives than about the toll that this unfettered spending and inflation is going to have on Americans. Prices have surged by 5% for each of the past 3 months, and inflation is expected to stay at 4% over the next 3 years. According to AAA, the average price for gas is $3.18 per gallon. That's almost 50% higher than a year ago. Inflation has the biggest impact on low and middle-class families, and it's gone up every month during the Biden presidency. To continue down this path on reconciliation, when we know it will lead to more inflation, highlights the president's broken promise to not raise taxes on lower and middle classes, because Americans know that inflation is taxation. Democrat economist Larry Summers warned earlier this year that the administration's reckless spending plans being pursued in Congress would lead to a spike in inflation and damage the economic recovery from the pandemic. When will the majority say enough is enough and slam the brakes on this reckless spending? Instead of working across the aisle to deliver on our country's critical infrastructure priorities, we're now facing a lose-lose situation. Either the House gets sidelined again in this process because the Speaker's ultra-partisan approach and because the package is full of provisions that violate both the Senate's Byrd Rule and the agreement by the president not to double dip on issues already litigated in developing the Senate infrastructure package. Or, if the Speaker gets her way, the majority and the president will have rammed through almost $7 trillion of spending in just 9 months, much of it going along party lines. And this is in addition to nearly $6 trillion spent in 2020. These numbers are scaring everyone. We know it's given some key senators pause, and now Senator Manchin is stating that he won't vote for this package. Furthermore, the majority of Americans supporting pumping the brakes because this level of reckless spending will lead to more inflation, more taxation, and more economic stagnation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I urge opposition to today's reckless spending spree, and with that, I yield back.